Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Her laugh was louder than the music. That's what hit me first. Not the flashing lights, not the sweat in the air, not the bass vibrating through the floor. Just her laugh, rising above it all as if the world had tuned itself to her frequency. I looked up from my untouched drink and saw her, spinning, laughing, swaying into him like they had a secret rhythm I was never meant to hear. She wore the dress I told her looked beautiful on her. She told me not to overhype it. Said, "It's just a work thing." Said, "You don't even have to come." But I came. I always come. And I always leave wishing I hadn't. They moved like no one else existed. I stood just 15 feet away, perfectly still, like a misplaced statue in the middle of their stage. No one saw me. No one said anything. And her? Her eyes swept the room several times, but never once landed on me. I wasn't angry. That was the terrifying part. I wasn't angry because this wasn't new. It was just the first time she made it this obvious. The man she danced with had one of those faces, smug but polished, like he expected admiration from strangers. She leaned into him, whispered something in his ear, and he grinned like he already knew the ending to the story I thought we were still writing together. That's when I realized I wasn't even a footnote. I set my glass down. No sound. No splash. No one noticed. I turned. I walked. I didn't check my phone. I didn't glance back. The cold night air outside didn't slap me awake. It welcomed me like an old friend finally saying, "What took you so long?" And that night, while she danced and forgot me entirely, was the night I began quietly dismantling the life we had built. Brick by brick, memory by memory. She would regret it. She just didn't know it yet. She didn't text me that night. Not once. I half expected a casual "where'd you go?" or some drunken emoji, but the silence was louder than any message she could have sent. I lay in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, running through every frame of what I saw, her body pressed against his, her head tilting back in laughter, her hands trailing across his chest like she'd forgotten I existed. It wasn't just disrespect. It was deletion, and it gnawed at me in places I didn't know could hurt. By morning, I still hadn't heard from her. At 10:42 a.m., the front door opened like nothing happened. She strolled in wearing a hoodie too large to be hers and holding a to-go coffee like she was nursing a hangover she had earned. She saw me on the couch, paused just a second, and said, "You left early." That was it. Not a question. A passive accusation wrapped in a shrug. I asked her who he was. She blinked, feigned confusion, then rolled her eyes. "A colleague. We were just having fun." "You always overthink everything, Lowell." That phrase, "you always overthink," is what she used when she didn't want to admit the truth. I'd heard it when she deleted texts without explanation. When she said she needed space after late-night meetings. When she smiled too much at her phone and flipped the screen over as I walked in. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something in her tone, her posture, the way she dismissed it all so easily, it didn't feel like a one-time thing. It felt like a pattern that I'd been too blind or too trusting to trace. I told her it hurt. That seeing her with him hurt me in a way I couldn't explain. She sighed like I'd spilled coffee on her schedule. "You're so dramatic," she said, walking past me, disappearing into the bedroom without a second glance. That's when it really hit me. She hadn't regretted a single second of it. Not yet, but I was going to make sure she would. Not with yelling. Not with revenge. With distance. With silence. With presence she could no longer ignore. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam doors. I didn't ask again. Instead, I went quiet. The kind of quiet that makes people uncomfortable because it doesn't ask for resolution. It just exists. Marla mistook it for sulking. She strutted around the house for the next 2 days as if nothing happened. She scrolled on her phone, played music in the kitchen, even laughed at some show while I sat at the edge of the bed staring at the floor. She never once asked me how I felt. Never once said sorry. Maybe she thought I'd get over it like I always did. But this time, something felt different inside me. Like a wire had finally snapped, not violently, but with a tired sigh that whispered, "Enough." On the third day, I started waking up earlier than her, leaving the house before she got out of bed. I didn't say where I was going. I just shower, grab my keys, and disappear. The first morning, she didn't notice. The second, she called me around 11 a.m. with a casual, "Hey, are you okay?" I let it ring. I didn't want to lie anymore, and I wasn't ready to tell the truth. I didn't even know what the truth was. I wasn't cheating. I wasn't plotting. I was just existing in a different orbit, one where she no longer held gravity. I started walking. Long walks. Nowhere specific. Sometimes through parks, sometimes down streets I'd never driven before. I'd find a cafe, order black coffee even though I hated it, and sit there for an hour doing nothing. It was the first time in years I felt alone in a way that wasn't suffocating. I realized how much noise she'd filled our lives with. Complaints, demands, passive jabs. It never stopped. And somehow I had become the background music to her spotlight. Then something happened. On the fourth day, I came home and found her sitting on the couch with her phone in her lap, staring straight at me. "Where have you been?" she asked. Not with concern, but with suspicion. I shrugged. "Out." She narrowed her eyes like she was trying to decide if I was bluffing. "You've been weird lately." I wanted to laugh. Weird? I'd watched her dance with another man like I was dead. And I was the weird one? "I just needed space," I said, echoing the same words she had thrown at me so many times. For the first time, they actually landed. She didn't have a comeback. Just silence. Thick, confused silence. That's when I saw it, the flicker. A tiny crack in her confidence. She wasn't used to me pulling away. She wasn't used to being the one left behind. And that was only the beginning. Marla started doing small things, quiet things, to pull me back in. She made dinner 2 nights in a row, which was unheard of. She left the bedroom door cracked open when she got dressed. A move she hadn't bothered with in years. And she started sending me texts during the day again. Short ones like, "Thinking of you," or "You doing okay?" They weren't sincere. I could tell. They were probes, like a scientist tapping on glass to see if the specimen still moved. I didn't respond. I didn't retaliate either. I just observed. Something in me had shifted. And though she didn't have the words for it yet, she could feel it. The game she'd mastered for so long, emotional push and pull, was beginning to slip out of her control. I wasn't seeing anyone else. I wasn't planning revenge. I was simply watching her squirm in the silence she used to weaponize. And for the first time, she couldn't label me as overreacting or too emotional. I wasn't doing anything. That's what made it so effective. I was detaching in real time, and it terrified her. Then came the night that confirmed everything I had feared. I had borrowed her laptop to print out a receipt for something work-related. She was logged into her email. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't even curious. But I saw his name before the page fully loaded. Liam. That same name from the night of the party. He had replied to a message titled "Last Friday was Wild Red Heart." My stomach turned. My hands shook a little, but I clicked. I shouldn't have, I know. But I did. And what I read didn't just hurt me. It unmade me. She told him she hadn't felt that free in years. That she hadn't laughed like that since college. That dancing with him made her feel alive again. And worst of all, she ended it with, "Don't worry, he won't do anything. He never does." That line. That smug, dismissive confidence. It burned deeper than the rest. She was right. Up until now, I never had done anything. I had swallowed every sharp moment, patched over every disrespect, nodded through every red flag. I had let her build a narrative where I was nothing more than a man too weak to matter. But that line snapped something. I didn't throw her laptop. I didn't confront her right away. I closed the tab, printed my receipt, made myself a cup of tea I didn't drink. Then I packed a small overnight bag, left a note that said, "You were right. I don't do anything. So I'm starting with this," and walked out the door before she even came home. She wouldn't read the note for hours. But when she did, I knew exactly what would happen. For the first time in our marriage, I had done something she didn't predict. I didn't go far. I checked into a small roadside inn just outside the city. Nothing fancy. Just clean sheets, warm water, and no trace of her perfume. I sat on the edge of the bed, still fully dressed, staring at the silence around me. It wasn't peaceful yet. It was raw, like a wound exposed to air for the first time. But it was mine, and that was more than I'd felt in months. By the time the sun dipped behind the cracked blinds, my phone had already buzzed 14 times. 8 messages, 3 missed calls, 1 voicemail. No apologies, of course. Just panic masked as concern. Where are you? We need to talk. You're being unfair. Unfair. She called me unfair. I didn't respond. Around midnight, the texts changed tone. That's always the cycle with her. Ignore, then guilt, then rage. She accused me of sneaking around, of blowing things out of proportion, of embarrassing her by disappearing. The irony nearly made me laugh. She was humiliated not because of what she did, but because I had the audacity to react. The next morning, I turned off my phone entirely. I took a walk, bought a terrible gas station coffee, and sat in a park watching joggers pass me like I didn't exist. That used to be how she made me feel. But out here, felt freeing. I didn't have to perform anymore. Didn't have to smile through the disrespect or pretend not to notice when she rolled her eyes at everything I said. Later that afternoon, I saw her car pull into the motel lot. She hadn't texted me that she was coming. I guess she didn't think she needed to. She marched to the door like she still owned the right to be there, knocked 3 times and said, "Lowell, open the door." I didn't. Seriously. Her voice cracked. "You're being ridiculous." Still, I said nothing. I watched through the peephole. Her arms were crossed, jaw tight, lips thin with irritation. She didn't look like a woman desperate to make amends. She looked like someone furious they were no longer holding the puppet strings. When I didn't answer, she left. Not quietly. She slammed her car door, sped off like a scene from a teenage drama. And I stood there in that quiet motel room, heart racing, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Not over her, but over myself. I had always been the one to chase, to fix, to forgive too fast. But now I was the silence she couldn't explain away. She'd lost her script. And without it, she didn't know what role to play. 2 days passed before I turned my phone back on. I expected more chaos. Missed calls, angry voicemails, maybe even one of those long, tearful texts she used to send during our early fights. But what I found was worse. It was cold, controlled. A single message, sent at 2:14 a.m. "If you're done, just say it. I won't beg." That was it. No explanation. No accountability. Just one last swing at pretending she was the strong one. I sat with that text longer than I care to admit, reading it over and over like maybe a hidden sentence would suddenly appear and change everything. But the truth was there. She didn't regret what she did. She regretted losing control over me. I stayed at the motel for 3 more nights. I didn't have a plan. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just didn't want to go back to a place where I'd spent years being treated like a fixture instead of a person. Somewhere around the 5th night, I finally felt something close to peace. That's when curiosity crept in. The kind you try to suppress, but it scratches anyway. I opened her social media. She hadn't posted since the party. Marla lived online. She documented her lunches, her outfits, even her moods like they were product launches. But now, silence. That silence told me something was brewing. I clicked through her tagged photos. That's when I saw it. A blurry shot at a downtown bar, posted by one of her coworkers. Marla in the corner, drink in hand, talking to Liam. Again, she wasn't even hiding it. And the caption? "When the past comes back better than ever." I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't mourning the loss of our marriage. She was rehearsing a new one. My chest tightened, not with heartbreak, but humiliation. I had left her a chance to fix it. I walked out quietly, with dignity, hoping she'd reflect, realize, maybe even chase me with the same energy she gave him. Instead, she filled the void with the same man she claimed meant nothing. The same man she swore was just a friend. I shut the phone off again and dropped it on the nightstand like it burned. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed with a storm in my skull, Every memory we had replaying like static. The trips, the late-night talks, the holidays spent with my family where she pretended so well. And the more I remembered, the more I realized she'd been performing for years. The real Marla didn't miss me. She missed control. She missed the comfort of knowing I'd always be there, just numb enough to stay. But this version of me, the one who walked away and said nothing, that terrified her. I didn't go back home. Not because I couldn't, but because I wouldn't. Something inside me had shifted too far in the opposite direction. The man who once begged for scraps of affection was gone. In his place was someone tired of apologizing for noticing the cracks in a marriage he didn't break. On the 7th day away, I received a voicemail. I didn't want to listen, but some part of me still needed closure, or maybe I just wanted to hear if her voice trembled. Didn't. Not at first. She started calmly, like she was reading from a script. "Lowell, I think we both need to stop acting like this. Come home and let's talk like adults." But halfway through, her tone cracked. "I know you saw the photos. It wasn't what it looked like. Please don't do this." And then the line went silent for 4 seconds before ending with a shaky breath. That breath. That was the first real thing I'd heard from her in weeks. Later that day, I returned home, but not to reconcile. I unlocked the door and stepped into a house that felt less like mine and more like a museum of bad performances. The scent of her perfume still lingered, as if she sprayed it just before leaving, expecting I'd show up. On the kitchen table sat a manila envelope with my name scrawled across it. Inside were divorce papers. No note, no explanation, just her signature and a sticky tab where I was supposed to sign. That was it. Her final move. Not a conversation. Not a plea. Just a silent exit disguised as strength. But that's not the part that broke me. Later that night, after she realized I'd been in the house, she came back. Not to apologize, but to finish the show. She barged in like I was the one who owed her something, started ranting about how I had abandoned her, how I'd embarrassed her by vanishing. I let her speak. I watched her pace in circles, arms flailing, voice rising, and for the first time, I saw it all clearly. The mask was gone. Her performance cracked in real time. And then she said it. "You were never enough for me, Lowell. You never challenged me. You were safe. Boring. That's why I danced with him. That's why I kept going back." Silence dropped between us like a guillotine. She didn't gasp, didn't cover her mouth like she regretted it. She just stood there, as if daring me to fall apart. But I didn't. Not this time. I looked at her, really looked, and realized I didn't love this woman anymore. I loved the idea of her, the version I'd built in my head while she quietly erased me behind my back. I nodded once, calmly, then I walked past her, grabbed my bag, and left, again. But this time not out of sadness, out of clarity, because now I knew. The real betrayal wasn't just in her arms around another man. It was in the way she looked at me for years and saw nothing. A month passed, then 2. I didn't hear from her again, not directly. Mutual friends reached out, some with shallow concern, others fishing for gossip. I didn't give them anything. What could I say? That I watched my wife turn into a stranger right before my eyes? That I saw the woman I once loved dance with someone else like I never existed? No, I kept it quiet, not out of shame but because I had nothing left to explain. The divorce finalized quickly. She wanted it clean, fast, and quiet, her words, not mine. I signed the papers without a word, mailed them back, and with that, the final thread snapped. She didn't show up in person. No dramatic goodbye, just a transaction between two people who once promised forever. I thought it would destroy me, but oddly it didn't. Freed me. Something incredible started happening after that. I woke up one morning, and for the first time in years, the weight on my chest was gone. The silence in my apartment wasn't suffocating. It was peaceful. I started taking long walks again, not to escape, but to enjoy the air. I reconnected with friends I'd pushed away. I even picked up photography, something I'd loved before life turned gray. Slowly, I started rebuilding not just my life but myself. The version of me that didn't beg, didn't shrink, didn't tolerate being invisible. Then, one afternoon I ran into her. Grocery store of all places. She looked surprised, then forced a polite smile. I nodded, kept walking. But in that brief moment I saw it, regret. Not because I was gone, but because I was doing fine without her. Because I had done the one thing she never expected. I moved on. She swayed with another man like I wasn't even there. But I walked away, and that changed everything. Thanks for watching this story on Reddit Confessions. What moment shocked you the most? Was it the dance, the email, or the final words she said? Drop your thoughts in the comments, we read every one. And don't forget to subscribe for more real, emotional stories just like this one. We'll see you in the next confession.